Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
What are some gruesome facts about pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum that not many people know? My wife's placenta wouldn't detach after the birth of our daughter, so the nurse just went up in there and got it out. I was oohing and ahhing over our new baby girl, and I look over to see someone damn near elbow deep, treating my wife like a sock puppet. It was so jarring. Mothers are so damn tough, dude, it's unreal. My mom had to have the placenta ripped out of her for all 3 kids. How she even allowed a second, me, is a fucking mystery to me. When she tried the whole, "when are you having kids," thing on me a few years back, I was just like, never have you heard your own stories, goddamn. I don't understand how any woman agrees or wants to have a second. I told my wife, if our kid needs a sibling, we can adopt. This happened to me. Doc said, we're gonna give you Dilaudid. It's not going to make this painless, but you won't care as much. It was awful. Having been addicted to Dilaudid and knowing just how high and pain-free it made me feel. I can't imagine how much pain you would have to be going through for it not to block it. Holy hell, y'all are some tough motherfuckers. You got pain meds. I had an epidural and it didn't do shit to help with the pain. The pain was absolutely worse having the doctor remove the placenta than childbirth was. He didn't even give it time to come out on its own. About 10 minutes after having my baby, he started to remove it manually. Worst pain I've ever been in. First trimester miscarriages are way more common than most people think. 1 in 4 pregnancies terminate before 3 months. And in a lot of miscarriages, it feels like a mini labor, with contractions coming in waves. The pain radiated to my back and butthole, which I wasn't expecting. Also, the amount of blood that comes out at once is bananas. Mine wasn't even that bad compared to many. And I still managed to get blood all over the toilet seat, bathroom floor, and sink. 2 miscarriages and an ectopic here. First miscarriage was bad. So much blood. So much. Second, holy hell. Pain in waves so bad you don't know if you are going to pass out or puke. My mom said hers lasted several days. Mine lasted a total of 4 hours, but I was on the floor throwing up because of how painful it was. It felt like I was having one long contraction the entire time. It's crazy how different everyone's can be. There is nothing that can be done for a blighted ovum. They just happen. This is what happened with my second pregnancy. Went to see the OB-GYN at 8 weeks and there was no little white blip. Heartbeat flashing in the ultrasound. The doc said it had the size of 4-week embryo and was dead. Miscarried a week or 2 later. Sucked to the north power of suckage. I had this happen on our first attempt to conceive. After doing HCG monitoring, we opted for a D&C since the egg sac was literally empty. My aunt told my mom I cut my baby out. That was great to hear. Nobody warned me that my insides would feel like they were falling out when I stood up the first few days after birth. This was going to be my comment. Imagine weights hanging on your intestines, lungs, stomach, etc. as they try to remember where everything goes now that the baby is out. This is true. A lot of people don't seem to realize that your organs are pushed up and out of place in order to make room for your growing uterus. They don't just immediately fall back into place right after you give birth. You basically have this giant gaping cavity in your midsection. Also, you bleed because when you deliver the placenta, it rips a dinner plate-sized hole in your uterus. Sorry to be so graphic, but I thought I would add on to that. It literally is what happens. Show pregnant and postpartum women some compassion. People. Edit. I just remembered something else that I thought it was important to add so people would know. This is especially true if you're breastfeeding, but women who are immediately postpartum get cramps that are worse than period cramps. This is because your uterus is shrinking back down into place. Of course, it's not as bad as labor, but it hurts really bad. Like I said, show pregnant and postpartum women some compassion. Their bodies just went through hell and back. It's hard work growing and giving birth to a baby. It's also hard work for your body to get back to at least some semblance of normalcy. Your body will never be exactly the way it was before your first child. In some ways, pregnancy and childbirth changes a woman's body permanently. One good example is that your hips spread out to make room for the baby. This doesn't go back. It's permanent. Before I'm done here, I want to stress the importance of not only checking on the baby but checking in with the mother as well. So many women suffer in silence when they have postpartum depression or are struggling to adjust to motherhood. It's not easy. Please, really check in with mom. If she tells you she's fine, don't just take that at face value. Women are conditioned to smile and power through. Really listen to her without judgment if she opens up to you and lets you know she's struggling. It can make all the difference in the world. It can even save lives. I gave birth via C-section on a Thursday, and on Friday afternoon my doctor stopped by to see me. Said I had to explicitly state if I wanted her to put in an order for any pain meds before she left for the weekend. I felt a little pain and asked if that was about as bad as it got. She said yes, so I told her I would be okay. It turns out my epidural hadn't worn off completely. When it finally did late Friday night, Early Sat morning, everything other than sitting completely still. Which, good luck with a screaming newborn and worn out husband snoozing away. Caused the worst pain I've ever experienced. A nurse came in to check on why I was just letting my baby cry at the top of her lungs and found me sobbing and squirming like a turtle on my back. I remember screaming and telling her I could feel my stitches tearing every time I moved, while she promised me they weren't. For some reason the nurses couldn't even give me Tylenol for the pain BC my doctor hadn't ordered it. I really to this day don't understand what that was all about. But I had some really amazing nurses that took care of me that night and raised hell until they finally got an order for pain medicine at like 2 a.m. Other fun birthing side story. My friend had warned me to be prepared for my perineum to feel like it was on fire for a few days after giving birth. So I ordered what I thought was a few ice packs for that purpose in advance. Turns out I somehow made a bulk order and a giant box. Like enough for dozens of births. That said my name and the contents in giant letters across the box, perineum cooling packs, was delivered to my front door. Since I ended up having a C-section, I couldn't even use them. We eventually just donated them somewhere a few weeks after I gave birth. So hopefully they served their purpose for someone. Dude, while I haven't given birth and I am so sorry you had to go through that. I can empathize so hard on the thing with the nurses not being able to give you what you clearly need. I was throwing up my toenails after surgery in a horrific reaction to the anesthesia. Literally out of my mind sobbing. More throwing up. And then it turned into blood because the surgery was inside of my mouth. Nope. Wouldn't give me anything to stop the nausea. I thought my grandmother was going to murder them. It continued for 3 hours until my doctor finally came out of the surgery she had gone into and got told, that is absolutely fucked up. That level of pain, no one should have to endure. That's horrific. A C-section is an open surgery. They ripped your abdominal muscles apart after cutting through all the other layers of your abdomen. Plus your uterus itself has nerve endings. And you were just supposed to tough it out. No other open abdominal surgery would be regarded as unworthy of pain management. Women's healthcare leaves me continuously disappointed. The leading cause of death in pregnant and postpartum women in the US is homicide. That's because domestic abuse by husbands, male partners, tends to peak during pregnancy due to the loss of control over the woman. Right? Sometimes it's because they've locked her in and can show their true colors. The mask often comes off with abusers when they believe that they've ensured the victim won't leave. Marriage, pregnancy, moving interstate, etc. Postpartum depression is extremely dangerous and can last for months after their birth. After my twins were born, my wife had a complete personality change. She became suicidal, and at times abusive to me. At one point she ran away from home. I found her 2 states away. Her brother had to bring her home. Things got really, really bad. The twins are 5 now and she's the person I married again. She doesn't like to talk about those times. The only thing she'll say is it was the darkest time in her entire life. My personality changed completely after my son. For the first time in 10 years I feel like myself again. Only because I'm pregnant and had to switch meds. But it seems Prozac is my thing, so I'm totally fine with it. The thing that frightens me the most is pelvic floor issues. Imagine suddenly no longer being able to control when you pee. Postpartum incontinence is no laughing matter. No, seriously, don't laugh. It'll make you pee. That made me laugh and then I peed. IMO pelvic floor therapy should be subsidized and offered after any birth. It is in France. In the first year after birth, you are allowed 10 free physical therapy appointments. And the midwives, obgyns, doctors highly encourage taking them. This has been an issue for me and I've never had kids, been pregnant. My advice, start doing pelvic floor therapy, exercises now. It'll only help you later on, when you really need those muscles to be strong and working correctly. Sometimes it takes weeks to be able to stand up, sit down, walk again without a ton of pain. No one fucking told me that the first time. I was so focused on how the actual birth might be painful. Had no realization that for over a month afterwards I'd be in danger of burning to death if the house ever caught fire because I could barely walk. I had a forceps birth. Doctor said I looked like I had been beaten with a baseball bat. When I walked it felt like I was wearing a giant diaper. I had to walk with my legs spread. Couldn't sit for the first 2 weeks, then had to sit on a donut for the next 8 weeks. I didn't have control of my bowels for the first few days, which was mortifying. I thought it was just me. When I went for my checkup, one of the first questions my doctor asked was, "Do you have control of your bowels yet?" Like WTF? Why didn't someone tell me to be prepared for this? I am pregnant and wish I hadn't opened this. My painful hips practically vanished after I gave birth. But the whole of my pelvic area had undergone such a beating during delivery. That walking was indeed too much for a few weeks. Postpartum mental illness is a thing, and it can be horrific. When I was 20, my best friend married a guy in another country and was having a baby. I visited to help out. It took a day or two. 7. Postpartum. For me to realize something wasn't right, and that she needed professional help. She was seeing and speaking to people that weren't there, freaking out about her baby being missing, when she was holding him, etc. That was my first experience with postpartum psychosis, and it was scary. PPD is bad enough, but childbirth-induced schizophrenia, my friend never really recovered, even with medication and support. She passed in 2020, complications and contraindications with a virus, not COVID, and her meds. This is one of the factors that makes the abortion ban so fucking infuriating. If you have bipolar disorder, a history of psychosis, or if you're experiencing depression, which is a given if you're forced to carry a fetus you'd rather terminate, your chances of developing postpartum psychosis skyrocket. Women who develop it are not given adequate care even when they ask. A woman in Australia just a couple of years ago requested help from 3 separate organizations, all of them denying her because they didn't have the resources, didn't think her situation was dire enough to warrant attention. The neighbors found her throwing her children's bodies in the garbage can. Completely delirious and out of her mind. No one helped her until it was too late. And now she has to live with what is possibly the worst fate that could succumb a human.